Okay, so today we're going really old school for our deep dive.
Ancient history in the house.
Yeah, exactly. Ancient Greece. But I think it's going to be a lot more relevant than maybe some people think when they hear that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, forget togas and, whatever preconceived notions people might have about, dusty old history books.
right, right.
This is about the roots of Western civilization.
Yeah, and we're going to be drawing from all kinds of
Hmm.
sources. We got uh, historical texts, philosophical works, uh, even some archaeological evidence to try to really paint a picture of this world and uh, and what it means for us today.
It's surprising how much of their world is still present in our world.
Yeah, that's what I'm really hoping we can get to today. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's the big question, right? Like, why should we, in the 21st century, care about what happened in ancient Greece? What's the hook?
Oh, I think the hook is that you can't really understand where we are today without understanding where we came from. And so much of what we take for granted, in terms of our political systems, our ideas about philosophy, and even our art and literature, it all traces back to ancient Greece.
I mean, that's a pretty huge claim
It is.
to say that this one civilization had that much impact. So, how did they do it? Like, what were the key ingredients that made ancient Greece so influential?
Well, I think one of the key things to understand is that ancient Greece wasn't a single unified empire or nation.
Oh, really?
It was actually a collection of independent city-states.
Oh, okay. So, like little mini countries, kind of.
Exactly. Each with its own government, its own laws, its own military.
Huh. Okay. So, kind of competitive, I guess.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They often fought with each other,
Right. Of course.
but they also shared a common culture and language, and that's what really makes it fascinating.
Okay. So, like a network of cities, but all Greek.
Right, and some of these city-states, like Athens, Sparta, Thebes, they really stand out.
Okay. Those names ring a bell.
Yeah, and for good reason. I mean, Athens in particular is considered the birthplace of democracy.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, that's where it all began.
Well, at least the version of democracy that we're familiar with.
Yeah.
The idea that citizens should have a say in how they're governed.
Right, right. Because we're not talking kings and queens here.
No, not at all in Athens. It was the citizens themselves who made the laws and decided on important matters.
So, like a giant town hall meeting or something.
Exactly. Of course, it wasn't perfect by any means.
Right. I was going to say.
Only free men born in Athens could participate. Women, slaves, foreigners, they were excluded.
Yeah. That's a big asterisk.
Definitely. But still, it was a radical idea for its time, and it laid the foundation for what we understand as democracy today.
Okay. So, we've got this very different political system emerging. But ancient Greece is also famous for its philosophers.
Oh, yes, the great thinkers,
Socrates, Plato, Aristotle.
giants of philosophy.
Yeah, why are their ideas still so relevant today? Like, what did they contribute that was so groundbreaking?
Where I think one of the most important things they did was to emphasize the power of reason and critical thinking.
Okay, so not just accepting things at face value.
Exactly. Socrates, for example, he was famous for his method of questioning.
Oh, yeah, the Socratic method. I've heard of that.
It's all about asking questions, challenging assumptions, and really digging down to get to the truth.
Huh. So, like a philosophical detective, kind of?
Yeah, kind of. And that method is still used today in all sorts of fields, not just philosophy.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so what about Plato?
Well, Plato was Socrates' student, and he was really interested in the idea of justice and what makes a good society.
Okay, that's still a pretty hot topic.
Absolutely. And in his book, The Republic, he lays out his vision for an ideal state.
Interesting. So, what does Plato's perfect world look like?
Well, it's a bit controversial.
Uh-oh.
He believed that the best rulers would be philosopher kings.
Philosopher kings.
Yeah.
Okay, so not your typical politicians.
No, not at all. He thought that only people who were wise and just and who had a deep understanding of philosophy should be in charge.
I mean, I can see where he's coming from, but
It's definitely not a very democratic idea.
no, not really. But it raises some interesting questions about who should lead and what qualities we should look for in our leaders.
Exactly.
Okay, so then there's Aristotle, Plato's student,
Another brilliant mind.
and he wrote about a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
Not just politics.
No, yeah, Aristotle was interested in everything,
Yeah.
ethics, logic, biology, physics, you name it.
Wow, a real Renaissance man.
He was, and his work had a profound impact on Western thought for centuries.
Okay, so we've got the political innovations, the philosophers, but what about the stories? I mean, ancient Greece is also famous for its myths and legends.
Oh, absolutely. And those stories weren't just entertainment. They were a way of transmitting values and beliefs and making sense of the world.
Okay, so like cultural touchstones, kind of.
Exactly. And perhaps the most famous of these stories are Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Oh, yeah, those are classic.
They tell the tales of heroes and gods and monsters, and they explore timeless themes like love, war, fate, and the human condition.
I gotta admit, I haven't read them since high school, but I do remember them being pretty gripping.
Oh, they are, and they continue to inspire and resonate with people all over the world.
Okay, so we've talked about politics,
Yeah.
philosophy, literature. What about science and math?
Mm.
Did the ancient Greeks make any contributions in those areas?
Oh, absolutely. They were pioneers in many ways.
Really?
Yeah. For example, Archimedes, he was a brilliant mathematician and inventor.
Oh, yeah, the Eureka guy.
That's him. He
Mhm.
discovered the principle of buoyancy. You know, the idea that an object submerged in a fluid experiences an upward force equal to the weight of the fluid it displaces.
Okay, that sounds familiar from science class.
It's a fundamental principle in physics, and it has all sorts of practical applications.
Huh. So taking a bath can lead to scientific breakthroughs. Who knew?
And then there's Pythagoras.
Oh, yeah, the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared.
Exactly. That theorem is still essential in geometry, and it has applications in all sorts of fields, from architecture to engineering.
Okay, so these ancient Greeks weren't just sitting around philosophizing. They were actually making some serious advancements in science and math.
They were, and their work laid the groundwork for many of the scientific discoveries that came later.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one more thing I want to touch on, the Olympic Games.
Ah, yes, the original Olympics.
So tell me about those. How did they get started?
Well, the first recorded Olympic Games were held in 776 BCE in Olympia.
Wow, so that's like over 2,700 years ago?
It is, and they were a huge deal. They brought together athletes from all over the Greek world to compete in a variety of sports.
Okay, so like a giant sporting event.
Exactly. And it was more than just a competition, it was also a religious festival and a symbol of Greek unity.
Huh, interesting. So even though these city-states were often at war with each other, they could still come together for the Olympics.
Exactly. The Games were a time of truce, and they helped to foster a sense of shared identity among the Greeks.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It is, and the Olympic Games continue to inspire and unite people all over the world today.
Okay, so last but not least, we have to talk about the Oracle of Delphi.
Ah, yes, the mysterious oracle.
Our sources described it as being pretty quirky. What was so special about it?
Well, the Oracle of Delphi was located at the Temple of Apollo in Delphi, and it was believed to be a place where people could go to receive divine guidance.
Okay, so like a fortune teller.
Well, not exactly. The oracle would give prophecies, but they were often very cryptic and open to interpretation.
Huh. So kind of like a riddle.
Yeah, kind of, and people would come from all over Greece to consult the oracle on all sorts of matters, from personal dilemmas to affairs of state.
Wow, so the Oracle had a lot of influence.
Oh, yes, definitely. And its pronouncements could have a major impact on people's lives.
So it sounds like it could be both exciting and terrifying to consult the Oracle.
Absolutely. You never knew what kind of answer you were going to get.
Okay, so we've covered so much in this deep dive, from the birth of democracy to the mysteries of the Oracle of Delphi. It's been an incredible journey through ancient Greek civilization.
It has, and I think it's clear that the civilization had a profound impact on the world we live in today.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up, what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think one of the most important things to remember is that the ancient Greeks were incredibly innovative and creative.
Okay.
They were constantly pushing the boundaries of knowledge, and they weren't afraid to challenge conventional thinking.
Right. They weren't just going with the flow.
Exactly, and I think that's a really valuable lesson for us today.
Mhm.
You know, we need to be willing to think outside the box and to come up with new solutions to the challenges we face.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And another key takeaway is the importance of civic engagement.
Okay, so participating in our communities and our government.
Exactly. The ancient Greeks believed that it was the duty of every citizen to be involved in public life, and I think that's something we should all strive for.
Yeah, because if we don't, who will?
Exactly.
Okay, so to bring this home for our listeners today, what's one thing you'd like them to walk away thinking about?
Well, I think a good question to ask ourselves is which aspect of ancient Greek civilization resonates most with us today?
Okay, so is it the democratic ideals or the philosophical inquiries or maybe the enduring power of their stories?
Exactly, because those ideas are still relevant today, and they can help us to understand ourselves and the world around us better.
I mean, that's pretty amazing to think about, that a civilization from thousands of years ago can still have so much to teach us.
It is, and it's a reminder that the past is never really past.
Yeah.
It's always with us in some way.
So true. So true. Well, on that note, thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, keep exploring, Keep questioning and keep learning from the past because it has so much to offer.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. See you next time.
See you then.
Bye.